Hello again. This is Blog 7. The end is nigh. Amen. Today I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about interpreting and whether or not interpreters should. The big question is, should interpreters pursue full participation rights within interpreted encounters? And so my answer to that is going to be twofold. I'm going to talk about it a little bit, and then I'm going to take an example that's kind of related to what we're talking about in class and flesh it out a little bit. So, my answer is no, because an interpreter's role is mediation. It's not mediation, it's relaying and translating. We are supposed to be sending an unauthored message. We are not supposed to author anything that comes into a conversation. It's kind of like, if I want to say something privately to someone, but then I have to invite someone else to come in and say it back and forth and back and forth, but that person wants to butt in and say their own piece and stuff, and that's not right, because they're paying for a service, and they deserve to be able to be free to make their own choices and to speak freely. Because consumers have rights in these situations, certainly when someone is being paid. So if something unethical or immoral happens during the communication, the interpreter, if you ask me, is socially responsible if harm comes to anyone, but there's no other responsibilities there. So, if someone gets cheated out of money, if someone ends up, buying something that was not worth the purchase or something like that, that's things that, if they have all the information, then that's up to them. But if there's, if the behavior, if the act goes on because there was something missing or there was something incomplete in my interpretation, then that's where the responsibility comes in. So as far as mediation goes, I would need, as an interpreter, to be 100% clear on what everyone is saying, and work from there, not seeking to be a participant, because that's more intrusive than necessary to get the message across. So my being there as an interpreter, and embracing everyone's right to speech and to choose for themselves. I don't think that my being there is showing that I condone what's going on. It's just showing that I'm qualified to interpret between two languages. And I think that God would understand that. And I think my moral life, my spiritual life might be a little bit threatened in some ways, but I think that when it comes down to it, we can't judge, what people are doing, because we're probably doing something similar or worse in our own private lives. So since we've been invited into what's normally a private situation, or would be a private situation, it's not our liberty to impose our faith or our ethic onto people that are not interested. That's not the way to get it done. We can't force someone into church. You can't force that. You can bring someone to church, you can drive someone to church, but you can't make them a Christian. You can't force their spirit to be free. So my situation that I'm going to be talking about is one that I talked about before, but that I think, since it goes kind of with our reading now, is more relevant now. And so the question is, would I interpret at an abortion clinic for an abortion procedure? So yeah, that's a tough one. I am diametrically opposed to abortion in 99% of the situations it is in, and that is based on my faith and my and even my ideas of feminism, although, most feminists believe the opposite. Um, but first and foremost, I think I would feel, and rightly so, wholly responsible if something really unsavory went on. I've seen so many documentaries about abortion, about how, women end up very, very, very sick, or very, very psychologically ill, or, you know, in some kind of physical pain. Um, you know, how they're talked into getting abortions, how the the fetus, the baby, whatever it is disposed of. Those things can be really, really gross and unsavory. And so I would feel really responsible for something like that. So if there was some miscommunication in the room, then I would feel that it was my fault. And so that's the main thing. It's not about my presence as a person, of a stakeholder. That's not the experience that I'm supposed to be having in the interpreted encounter. I am supposed to be a relayer of the message. And so, to me, if if there's if the consumers are misinformed, it would be completely my fault. And so then whatever happens next, as far as a procedure goes, would also be my fault. And so, if there's a counselor, like sometimes they'll have, like, before they are able to get their procedure, they have to go to this, psychologist or something to establish, their mindset when they're trying to get the procedure. And if I'm not able to relay the message and relay the information properly, then that deaf person, deaf patient, or even if it's deaf doctor and hearing patient, would not receive everything they needed to make an informed decision. And for me, anything that's going to stop them from making that decision is pertinent, as well as anything that would completely inform them so that they can make a decision that was the best for them. And it's not up to me to decide what their spiritual life has to be. So they might choose to get it anyways, but it's certainly not my place to try to shake them either way, but it is my place to ensure that they're getting everything that they need out of that situation. So if they still decide to get it. I think that, honestly, I would have no other choice but to be supportive of that, and to continue to be in the room and continue to interpret anything that's going on. And that's hard because I hate that, but I think that it is an adult woman's legal right to choose right now. And if it was illegal, then I would not support it. But since it's legal, and if it goes about decorously, then I would have to support it, and I would have to make sure that that deaf person gets everything that they need and gets all the information. Because, if I say, I'm done, I'm not leaving, I'm leaving, I'm not doing this, after they've decided to get the abortion, then they're going to go through that. First of all, they're going to go through it alone. Second of all, they're going to go through it without knowing everything that's going to be happening step by step. And I would hate for someone to have to, like, be passing notes back, the nurse to have to pass notes back and forth about something like that. So I think that, based on our discussions in class and our discussion board about, the importance of allowing others to choose for themselves, whether we would choose that way or not, is important. And in light of the recent, all the stuff in the news lately, I think that we are all sinning differently. And if you ask me, getting an abortion is a sin, but it's not a worse sin than anything that I've ever done or anything that anyone else is doing. It's not a worse sin than homosexuality. It's not worse than anything else. So, so it's not my right to try to force someone to choose one way or the other. Now, if it was one of my friends or family, on the other hand, that might be a different story for me because we have investments in each other's lives, and I think that's what we're here for. But in this case, I would have to be in the room and interpret. So that is blog 7. And I talked a little bit I took some pieces of some research from the book, the Hayes book, the Moral Visions of the New Testament, and some of the articles we read in class. So, thank you.